For you.
Mm.
Since I've been into UK, I've noticed that any mosque that I've been to seems like less of a Muslim place, more of a certain community place. What about the inclusivity of these places? Or Islam? How does Islam? Because what I understand from Islam that this is anti-Islam. Islam's for everyone.
Mm.
But how come these places have become a places for certain group of people? If you talk to them, they'll be like, "Yeah, we welcome everyone." But I know maybe deep down they wanna welcome everyone, like or what they're up to. But what is the repelling thing that unintentionally occurs that we see the fabric of these places turn into like something very
Cold.
not
You
let's
feel
not
the push. You feel the push.
it's it's not push, but like let's say at the end it's something very human as well that people like to be in places where they feel home. That's a very common thing. So I'm not just pointing fingers and blaming that okay these people are doing something wrong. So this is the case. I've seen that in Luxembourg too. There is like Kosovans who have their mosques, Algerians, Arabs go there because of some language. So but this is still anti-Islam.
Mm.
Why can't we bring people together?
Mm.
And that's a question that even so many governments, so many states try to work on, try to bring people together.
No,
What
Something that has a lot of
complexities?
complex and reasons behind it. It's called quite multifaceted as to why it's like that. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Going to a central mosque in a big city, you do feel like there is one particular ethnicity that predominates in terms of not just numbers but also the language that is used in the mosque, which shouldn't really be the case. Um, but I think it comes down to how Muslims first view themselves and how they view the other. So I think they've always drawn a line between themselves and viewed what they call the non-Muslim as being so alien to them that they've not really been able to integrate themselves. They've almost just felt like this is how we do it, and they've not really been able to, or even been interested in finding any common ground with the countries that they've emigrated to. Almost to say that, well, we're in a non-Muslim country, so we have to stick together, and that kind of thing, that kind of ghetto mentality almost. Even to a certain extent, you can still see it now. Third generations are still living in
in
sometimes the
areas.
same areas
Yeah,
that
yeah.
their grandparents first immigrated into. So I think there is a problem with Muslims, traditional, whether they're coming from South Asia or they're coming from Middle East or North Africa, not really being able to come to a country and integrate themselves because they only see things that that were done in their country as being Islam, without really recognizing that if you go anywhere in the world, because Islam is actually so open in terms of it is just one belief in one God and doing good things, you can still find a lot of things in common if you look for it. If you come to the UK, if you come to Europe, there are actually a lot of similarities with Islam. And even if you don't, still, you know, by getting involved in a country where you're born into, if you're a first generation or second generation, you can then start to build bridges. But I think part of the problem is that over time we only view Islam through almost through an ethno-religious lens as well. So it's become to the point where, and I think this is deep rooted in terms of the Muslim communities, their hatred of the West as being decadent and being the source of all evil, and that they feel like usually say if someone's dressed as a Muslim, it's as if Islam has a uniform. As
But
if
don't you think that now this is gonna be like pointing fingers? But it's okay. I think my voice will reach. But like, don't you think there is this incident in not very far past, but 9/11, which created this image to be, you know, what is Islam? It has something to do with terrorism.
I think that's
If
how.
somebody has a beard,
Yeah.
you know, because before 9/11, I don't think this was the case. After
But
that,
we're
the
talking about the
stereotype became
I
too
think
much.
that's
community.
how.
We talking about the
I think that's how
community.
the
They never
West's
integrated.
view Muslims. But what I'm talking about is how Muslims view Muslims.
Ah,
So how what Muslims think a Muslim is it has a particular dress. So, for example, I was talking to someone today and they mentioned that he was walking towards someone who was dressed like a Muslim. Well, what does that mean? How can someone dress like a Muslim? What it usually means is that they're dressing like
Modesty.
no. What it usually means is that they are dressing like people who live in particular parts of the world. So it can be someone who's dressed in the full thobe of the Arabs.
That's
And
Arab.
that's Arab. But some people think, well, he's dressed like a Muslim. But he's not, he's dressed like an Arab. But what I notice is that when you go to the mosque or you go in this particular classes, like the Quran classes for the young kids, young teenage boys, they dress in a long thobe. Well, why are you dressing in a long thobe? You're not Arab. But it's how
became a
Muslims
uniform.
perceive how Muslims, and it's also a myth about how the Prophet Muhammad dressed, which is false. He didn't dress like that. But
Even if he did,
even if he did,
if he was born in America, then
Yeah,
he would have dressed like American.
yeah. So even if he did, yeah, it's because he was an Arab. But people have associated Islam with particular parts of the world and how they dress, which then goes to skin color, which then goes to facial features. So I think that is part of the problem where we've confused the fact that these countries are just traditionally Muslim, but it doesn't mean that someone who's born with blonde hair and blue eyes can't be Muslim. It's just an accident of history that the Quran's message hasn't gone that or didn't go that far. So I think that's part of it is that it's become almost ethno-religious to a certain extent the way that it's viewed. Hence why even in the UK there's some mosques that still their main lectures are in Urdu. They shouldn't be doing that. It should be in English. Because even the third rate, they always feel more comfortable in English than they do with Urdu or Hindi. With regard to the other thing, I noticed in any community, Sunni, Shia, doesn't really matter. You find mosques that are Iraqi, you find mosques that are Pakistani, you find mosques that are African, and this is just it's almost like a human needs to be with those who are like you. In its most extreme form, it gives rise to racism. But there is a human need to be with because it's a comfort zone. But Islam came and said that Allah is your comfort zone. Allah is the one that you attach yourself to. So therefore, it shouldn't really matter the ethnic background, the national background of the person sitting next to you. If you both are brothers with Allah, it shouldn't really matter if your real connection is with Allah.
So should we? You suggest from this that there shouldn't be a comfort zone that we should seek. Though I think it's very important to have like people from your own community, maybe, but like, should we avoid that comfort zone in order to be more inclusive?
Yes.
So that's
Yes.
To be honest, my problem is I am not with any community, but I felt I am more comfortable with, like with your family. Yeah, with you,
Like
with your
how can
family. But like it's like I have been more
white British
welcomed.
maybe?
Yeah, I have been more welcomed. You felt that way, did you? You were in Bangkok all the time with Dad. How did you feel?
see, the thing is like it reminds me of the example of Albania.
Mm-hmm.
The mosques, that's a very different vibe. I've not seen mosques like that.
Oh, I love it.
So the thing is like now we really get out of the particular community bubble,
Yeah, so you broadened your horizons.
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
mosque is a very interesting place in Albania because somebody could walk in with a skirt
Oh yeah.
and somebody could be walking in with a hijab and Arab thobe or whatever, and everyone's entering with the same level of comfort.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. So you feel like there is no judgment.
Oh, yeah, no.
So I get the idea that we have to get out of our comfort zone, but I think leaving this comfort zone brings another next level comfort zone. It's not just like we get uncomfortable doing what Allah wants us to do, but I think that's
Because you're so comfortable with Allah, because this ethno national ideas, it's fickle, because it's just an accident of where you were born. It doesn't really mean anything. It's better to be attached with your maker than anything else. It's better to be attached with the maker than with the creation.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
It's
We're not flexible, and one thing we also don't understand, and it's a very important point, is that we don't understand we are living in the UK. We're not living in Pakistan. We're not living in Saudi Arabia.
Sheikh, I was living in Pakistan. I was a kid. I went to a mosque. I was wearing sleeveless as a kid. A old Babaji stopped me and he was like, "Don't you know you cannot come in the mosque like this?"
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe 9
Mm.
or below 9. I don't know. Like I was very young, and I was like, don't want to go to this mosque because this scary man might catch me again.
Yeah.
Like so this could be
But
something that comes
in
anyway.
terms of, if you come in about what, like I'm saying about the UK and like US or whatever, is that you will have people who are like, you're born in a Muslim family, but you have here majority of people who are not born in Muslim families who are maybe curious, but who would maybe take the opportunity to go into a mosque in the same way they maybe want to go to a synagogue or anywhere else. That should be something that Muslims should be prepared for, and understand that you can't impose these things that shouldn't be imposed on Muslims anyway, let alone someone who is just curious about religion or curious about Islam. All fault goes on that
The Imam the other day,
who was in the mosque. That all fault goes to that person. They should have at least a grain of sense, but unfortunately they didn't. That you are living in a multicultural society. There's nothing in Islam that says that you have to necessarily have such strict standards on dress going into a mosque. There's nothing, and it all comes down to, again, it's like maybe impossible standards that we set, and too many laws and too much emphasis on what's haram and what's halal, and just kind of just being a bit more relaxed, I think, would be a lot easier for everyone.
I told you the other day what the Imam told me.
What did he tell you?
The guy was like, "You're from Pakistan." I was like, "Yeah, you don't look Pakistani." I was like, "Okay, blah blah blah." Started talking, and then he was like,
"I don't judge you."
I was like, "Pray for me."
Yeah.
I told him like, "Yeah, pray for me." So it's something you tell anyone, pray for me. And he was like, "Just keep praying." Like I am born and raised in UK, so I won't judge you for your hair and like, thank you.
But again, it goes down to what we were saying about, it's like this idea that we have with Muslims. Like you went wearing the uniform. That's the problem. You went wearing the cap and having the beard and the shaved head.
He's telling me I'm broad-minded as well, but you're not wearing the uniform.
Yeah.
Though it's my highness, that I don't judge you.
Yeah. He's doing you a favor.
Yeah. So because I've been brought up in a different culture, I have a lot of exposure. So
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't want to. I didn't say anything. I just smiled. Like I don't have any hard feelings or I have any hurt or offense. But it's interesting. Like people can. Everyone has this idea internally that they're right.
Yeah.
So this is so difficult that you can communicate. You can come across. I've seen more Western people accepting and intellectually on better levels, very very high levels.
Emotionally drained, we are as Muslim. We are emotionally attached, not intellectually attached to being. That's what I felt now.
No, that's true.
I felt like before I was very emotionally have relation with Allah, but now I have, of course, emotional relation is there, but intellect also, like it makes sense that I give other people space and I let other people's opinion. I'm not teenager anymore. I think that's my problem. But I think who are
She,
emotionally
I have a
attached are
question. Yeah,
teenagers.
just
Huh?
to put Faiza's thing,
Mm.
that brought a question in my mind as well.
Uh-huh.
Is following religion a question of intellect or emotion?
Oh yeah, you
Intellect.
cannot.
I don't think it involves much
But your
emotion.
connection with Allah, that connection itself, is it based on not your, but
Mm.
like
I
the
think it has
connection?
to be intellectual. And I don't mean that as in like an academic sense, but it has to be thought through and reasoned. Hence why the Quran always talks a lot about using, akal, using reason. It never says use your emotion, but it tells you to think. So I think if you're saying that,
But
it has to be one or the other, it's not really one because you're a whole human being. So your Islam should be whole. It's a holistic view. But I think, when you're more in terms of putting your emotions aside, you are more likely to act also and think in a mature fashion. You know what happened, for example, when certain things happened, like the Salman Rushdie incident.
which incident?
Salman Rushdie, the
Salman
author.
Rushdie.
So when he wrote the Satanic Verses, people saw it as an attack on the Prophet Muhammad's dignity, which is fair enough, and you can reason with it and have discussions. But instead, some people get very emotional and they get very aggressive on, for example, there were a lot of marches around the world protesting against this.
I remember that
But
thing. I think the
yeah,
guy who killed him.
no, there was a fatwa put out that
Well,
whoever sees him can kill him, by the Ayatollah and maybe other religious authorities. But people will less likely act in an honourable manner in that situation if they get too emotional. So I'm usually saying that an example. I think, also emotions is it's a bit superficial. Whereas if you've really thought about it and it's more reasoned and it's more, and let's just use the word intellectual, then I think it's more grounded in your being. Like I think if you look at most of the Muslim majority population, not just in the UK but around the world, there is maybe more of an emotional attachment. This is what they were born into. It's what my family did. It's what my forefathers did. But how much of it is actually their own thinking?
you know,
Not
Iqbal
much.
added something interesting here. Again, a curveball for you. He said, "Kud pada ishq atish namrood mein." So he mentions that ishq jumped into the fire of Namrud. Akal Meva is like the Akal was standing on top of a wall looking like what just happened. So Akal at that time was thinking that it's fire and it's hot.
Mm.
But Ishq
Of Hazrat
jumped in.
Ibrahim.
So uh, it's a mixture of, like, I think intellectually you can go to a certain extent, but that's a mandatory extent that you need to cover. But there are, then comes Iman, when you know like there is no possibility or doesn't make sense.
I think what it's saying is that there's limits to human reason.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think that's what it's not about, like emotions. I'm talking about like emotions, like as in letting your, as we say, letting your emotions get the better of you. That's what I'm saying is that we should avoid. Like I was saying, that there is always a limit to human reason because it's something that we
Today I
have.
understood Iqbal.
Yeah.
Well done.
It's like there's a limit to
Did you
human
get
reason
that?
because there's a limit to the human being. And if reason is part of the human being, then there's a limit to that as well.
Well done.
So that's what it's saying is that the limit. And ishq is like your connection with Allah, which can be eternal, it can be whatever. So that's what he's saying. It's like, faith as a level that Allah's beyond our reason, because our reason is attached to things like laws of physics and how they work. But laws of physics themselves are a creation. If Allah wants to bend those, then Allah can. That's where the faith comes in. So that's where the ishq came in, because that ishq is that love of Allah that's realizing that Allah's even beyond our laws of physics and our comprehension. But what going on before about emotions is like don't let emotions get the better of you. And I think going back to the very original part of the video where we were talking about inclusiveness, I think that's where we haven't reasoned and thought about the religion enough. We're just taking it from, like, for example, not me, but people who are from South Asia or Middle East. They're taking it from their fathers or forefathers, and they think that again it comes from these lands, but these lands are just an accident of history that they are quote Muslim. Islam is because it was there before the Prophet Muhammad, because it's the only religion accepted by Allah, and Allah's Rabbul Alameen. So we have to understand that religion and true religion is for everyone. It can be for the person with blue eyes and blonde hair. It can be from sub-Saharan Africa and everyone in between.
See, what you're saying is like something that you hear every day by Muslims.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm not saying that what you're saying is not right, or like it's like something new.
So they know it, but they don't practice it.
Yeah, it's the problem of like practice.
I think it comes from an individual basis, and sometimes it takes maybe sometimes people to have a event in life. For example, Malcolm X, the civil rights activist and spokesman, revolutionary in America, famously became Muslim, and he had the background of coming through, the back door and coming through the Nation of Islam, which was tentatively related to the religion of Islam. It was actually a racist organisation that viewed, the African Americans as the real Muslims and the white people as being devils. So that was his idea. And he went on Hajj. And it shook his ideas because he saw, going around the Kaaba, people from Africa shoulder to shoulder with white Europeans. He saw it practically, and that he realised at that moment, and that's when his conversion to normal Islam began. So it takes an individual basis for us to individually take hold of our own accountability and our own beliefs and think it through and go back to the Quran and try and understand it. Whether it takes, if you need an Urdu translation, if you want to learn Arabic, if you need an English translation, but try to understand what the Quran actually says. You can know the Quran, read it, and read it very well and have a very good pronunciation, but do you actually know what it means?
I have something very interesting to ask, but I think we should ask this in the next session, because that would change the topic entirely.
Okay.
But I can just leave the question maybe.
yeah,
Okay,
leave the
we'll leave it as
question
a
for the next.
cliffhanger.
Yeah.
As a cliffhanger, what's the question?
So I have a lot of friends who did like good effort intentionally. They were like wholeheartedly trying to understand. And this is not just a problem of my friends, but a lot of people. I am sure people who are listening right now, they're definitely some who feel the same, that they go open Quran and they open translation and they try, but then it's the challenge to, at the end of the whole uh, weeks or months of effort, they feel like, like I really didn't get, I'm still where I was. I already knew all of this or something, so like it's not easy to understand basically what they feel. And it's a genuine issue. Like it's like there's no shame in it to
No,
say
it's
it,
good thing,
because
yeah.
because then there is this shame to even say like, okay, I read it, but I
So don't understand it or don't get the
Just
true
out of
meaning, or
it, yeah.
it's a general problem. Like even if I read it, sometimes it just, maybe we are reading it wrong. What's wrong with, or then comes the factor of going to people who mislead people, that who claim that they know it, and then they explain it, and then they can explain it however they want to explain it. And
That's such a good
Okay, looks like
question.
we'll have to get into
That's
each other's
very
minds.
true.
Until next time.
until
That's
next
a
time,
good
Sure.
one. And
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah.
Until that time.
Thank you.
No question
Bye.
is off limits. Shit. Now get ready for some next level
Some
questions.
crackers. Sound good.
Assalamu alaikum.